Welcome.
What's up?
All right, I wanted to introduce Brad Pickett before we get started here. Brad's one of my good
Be right
friends.
back.
He's a fellow, he's an M1 with me. The guy's an amazing real estate investor. He's an industry leader in marketing for wholesaling and wholesaling education. And he is probably just as into personal development, if not more so than myself. We've shared a lot of experiences. And I just figured he'd be a great person to bring on and tell some stories about psychedelics and our spiritual growth and our personal development as part of this. So welcome, Brad. I'm super glad to have you on here and super excited for this interview.
What's up, man? Glad to have you. Or glad to be on here and excited.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous. I had a few people that were reaching out like, what are you doing? What are you thinking with doing this interview? And the whole point of this for me, it's not to get people to try psychedelics. It's not even really to tell about our experiences as much as the stories about how it changed our lives and to get those principles across to people, because I think psychedelics give you an insight into yourself and into the world that maybe you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, it's kind of taboo. I mean, I think a lot of people will partake and use it to change their lives like you and I have, but I also think that a lot of people don't want to talk about it. So I'm with you, man. It's a little bit nerve-wracking to talk about it, but let's do it.
Yeah, well, I got kind of inspired by Joe Rogan and Elon Musk smoking weed, and we have 8 viewers right now and climbing, so I'm not as worried about our reputations as them. So first of all, these are very serious substances. They're not recreational drugs. If I did these, I would have no desire to be out in public. What we've done is, so I'll just share ayahuasca and mushrooms. That's it. And I've done them very sparsely. And they really cause you to go inside. And they show you things about yourself. So there's no desire. They're not necessarily fun. There's no desire to go out into the world and party on them, right?
Yeah, it's more about doing inner work, which, I think everybody, whether they admit it or not, needs some inner work. So that's what it's done for me. It takes you inside, and the change I think that most people are trying to get in their lives comes from inside, not from outside stimulus. So that's what makes them so powerful.
Yeah, and we did these ceremonies with people who have devoted their entire lives to this, right? These are professionals. Think of this as going to get brain surgery, right? You wouldn't go down to your local store to have a brain surgery. You would get the best people that have been in this world for a long time to make sure you're safe. Because again, these are the ceremony and the process is very special, and it's beautiful, and it's sacred almost. And you want to have the right people around you and hosting it. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's not to be taken lightly. I think there's a lot of respect that has to go towards this. I know people that don't understand it kind of just classify it as a drug or whatever, or it's, there's so many drugs out there that are harmful for people. And I believe that this is totally different. I mean, this is an energy that takes you to a very good place, makes you feel very good inside. And it just reminds you of your creator or source or whatever you believe in. And it demands a lot of respect.
Yes. So someone asked, where do we do a guided mushroom trip? That's not really what we do here. We're really here to tell our stories and to share a couple principles from that. So Brad, I'm going to let you start and just tell a story about an experience you had, something that changed your life. So before I do that, our subconscious minds are trained and programmed by extreme emotional events. And so just going into that, we know that these substances, these medicines, they give us an extreme emotional event to totally even reprogram our brain and the neural connections. So that being said, let's hear about one of your stories.
Yeah, so this isn't a story I would normally share to a lot of people, and it's definitely not a story I would share on Facebook Live, but here I am. And the reason I'm going to tell this story is because I think it'll benefit a lot of people. So when I first had an experience with ayahuasca, we'll call it madre, my intention was to create self-love. And I think that's really important for a lot of people, to just learn to accept themselves for who they are. Because once you do that, you can really open up to the rest of the world. And I think that's probably the deepest work there is. So that was my intention. And as I went into this experience, I started asking some questions. And it was like I was having a conversation with a higher being. And it basically talked to me about, you know, what are you putting in your body? So it started out with food. It's like, well, if you care about yourself, you should be feeding yourself quality food, quality things going into your body. But then it went to alcohol pretty quick. And so this story is going to be about alcohol and what I learned. It said, well, you know, alcohol has its own spirit as well. And I said, oh, really? What is that spirit? And I have to tell a real quick backstory here, because 2 days earlier, this was down in Colombia, and 2 days earlier, I was in Bogota, and we were riding in this cab, and this destitute guy, man, he was like 23 years old. He comes up to our cab and reaches in and tries to like steal purses and stuff out of there. And he was a homeless guy, horrible shape. I looked at his face. I saw his eyes. I saw his soul, but he was gone. Like he wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Solid red eyes, open sores on his face, covered in fecal matter and urine, just horribly personed. I mean, he was in a really bad spot. So that guy stuck in my mind. And there's some reasons for that, you know, I think Nick would understand too, because you kind of start to get influences before you actually go into the actual ceremony. So that guy really stuck in my mind. He's still in my mind very clearly right now. And so going back to my story, I said, what spirit is alcohol? And boom, that guy's face was in my face, like 1 inch away. I could smell him. I could see him. And I immediately just got up and I went outside and, you know, lost myself for a minute. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's disgusting. And so I recollected myself and I came back in and I sat back down and I started asking these questions. I said, you know, well, tell me a little bit more about this. And it says, well, alcohol is interesting because you give it 2 hours. Say you give it 2 hours for a happy hour, right? You decide, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a happy hour with my friends. I mean, that's very socially common. There's actually a ton of social pressure to do that in this world. And you go out and your intentions is, okay, I'll give it 2 hours of my life. You go out and 2 drinks turn into 4 or 6 or whatever they are. And it ended up taking 4 or 6 hours that night from you instead of 2, but it's not done yet. So that night when you go to sleep, your body can't actually digest normally. It's focused on getting the ethanol. Alcohol is just ethanol, guys. It's pure poison. It's focused on getting the ethanol out of your body. So your whole metabolism is not burning fat, not burning calories the way it's supposed to be. So you're not sleeping correctly. You may think that you get drunk and pass out, but you're not getting the sleep you need. So it doesn't just take the 2 hours, it takes the 6, but then when you go to bed, it takes that whole night too, but it's still not done yet. The next day, you go into work, or you deal with your wife or your girlfriend and you're snappy, people are asking you questions and you're like, you know what, just figure it out. You know, you're snappy to people, you're maybe at 60 or 70% of the person you normally would be. And people notice that. They're like, man, he's kind of a dick today, you know, what's his problem? And so then it takes the whole next day. So in that time period, it really took 24, maybe 48 hours of your life, but it's not done yet. And this is what I learned. It also goes into the foundation of your house. Goes under your house, cracks your foundation, and makes you full of doubt, makes you full of these ideas that you're not worthy, that you can't do it. Who am I to start my own company? Who am I to go on Facebook Live and give advice? Who am I to, you know, ask this woman out on a date or whatever it is? You start to get this breakdown inside of you. So basically what I learned in short is it's like a gateway to negative energy. Now, sure, you can have fun with alcohol. Don't get me wrong. But just be aware that it is a gateway to negative energy. And so many people that don't have a problem with alcohol, it affects them in ways that they have no idea. It's affecting their performance in more ways than one. It's affecting their ability to be fit. It's affecting their digestion. It's affecting their mind. So that's kind of why I created Elf in the Room. And that also came from ayahuasca, was because people don't even know. It's like, picture everybody sitting around a table and they're all drinking all this alcohol, but there's a big ass elephant sitting on the coffee table.
Yeah.
And all it is the alcohol. And everybody wonders why. They wake up the next morning and, oh, John and Susie got in a fight. Oh, he showed up late to work. Oh, my wife's going to be pissed at me. Like, come on, guys. It's obvious. What's the elephant in the room? It's alcohol, right? So that's what I learned. That's my alcohol story. It's one of my stories.
So Brad, how did these realizations come to you? Like you said, was it a conversation? Was it a knowing? Was it that image of the guy? Like, how did your understanding come to you in this session?
So for me, it's not a conversation. It's, you ask a question in your mind and the answer comes into your mind. So there's not someone talking to you. It's just you just ask a question, like, just like you're thinking. Like, a lot of people on this Facebook Live are probably thinking, wow, this is crazy. That you don't even have to say it out loud. And then the answer just comes into you.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So, and in my model, I think that we tap into different thought frequencies. And I know when I consume alcohol, after it's worn off, my thought patterns, like you said, are doubt, fear, worry, totally different thought patterns for the next couple days. And so I love that you had that experience to share.
That's the main reason, man. I mean, that's what made me like, I mean, when I left there, I didn't drink for like 4 months. And I still drink a little bit. Like, I actually think that my dad's watching on this live, and I want to be able to have a 20-year-old whiskey with my dad one day at the cabin in Idaho. I mean, that's something I'm going to do, and I'm probably going to have a cigar too. So I didn't leave there and saying, I'm never drinking again. No, it's like, I'm going to bring my highest and best self to every situation and make a decision based on that. And what I found is that alcohol doesn't take me where I want to go. Now, if you're John, or what's his name, Nicolas Cage in Leaving Las Vegas, alcohol could be your perfect vehicle, right? His whole idea was to go drink himself to death. So it's not a judgment of this is right or this is wrong. It's just decide where you're going and decide if it fits in. And for me, it doesn't. And then when I choose to partake, even if I have, as I have recently, I mean, even just a little bit throws me off of my power, man. Takes me away from my power.
And I live in the Midwest. It's a lot of beer drinkers, Iowa, and I spend time in Wisconsin. And I get a lot of shit for not drinking that much, which is why I try to spend more time with guys like you, because we have that in common. And I don't give in to social pressure anymore because I don't really care what other people think. And I feel so good all the time that I don't want to drink. Okay, so I'm gonna tell.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens, man. You stop and you realize that everything comes, you don't need something outside of you. Everybody's looking outside of them for the solutions. It's all inside you. Okay. And I know that sounds esoteric, but that is like the simplest thing. If you can figure that out, all the answers are within you. So every time you try to put something down your throat or whatever it is, it's like, you're just avoiding the work that needs to be done. That's really all you're doing.
So that's a perfect segue into my first story. This was not too long ago, and it was life-changing. So I was doing mushrooms, and it's so weird to say it on a Facebook Live to talk about this. So I was doing mushrooms. I was laying in bed. I had my headphones in. I was listening to music, and mushrooms goes through different phases, right? You get the kind of, when you close your eyes, you get the colors and the patterns that are amazingly beautiful, and the music is so good. And I'm listening to classical music, and it's beautiful. And then you go through another phase where they start to show you things. They start to show you things about yourself. And I had realized that I hadn't let go of some resentment towards people. I thought I'd forgiven some people, but it showed me very clearly that I hadn't. And for some reason, I got tuned into Enya. I was listening to the song "How Can I Keep From Singing," which is really about being unconditional with your happiness, right? Like the song is basically, no matter what's going on, like, how can I keep from singing? Because like there's so much to be joyful about. And so I'm listening to that song, and I just start releasing. I'm like crying for like an hour and a half, listening to the song on repeat, and I'm just forgiving people. And as that progresses, I started to find this place of unconditional love. And like, it's hard to describe it, but like this feeling just washed over me, and my body felt totally free, and I'm totally in the present moment, and I feel unconditional love. And what's going on is your brain's releasing love-based chemicals, which changes your vibration. So I'm tapping into these feelings of unconditional love, and I see my whole world around me in like a metaphor, as all of my fears are walls. They're barriers that surround me. And so our thought patterns, our thought patterns, our judgments, our fears, our language creates these barriers around us. And this is why we get stuck, is because all of these barriers are fear, and you don't even see them until I did this. And then I saw it so clearly. It was like these barriers came down, and it was so powerful. And I was super emotional, and I'm like so filled with love. And eventually I start seeing my goals, right? And they're like all these steps to accomplish my goals. And within that, I realized that this like tunnel started to open up, and it was like it was like a trap door straight through, and like all the steps were gone. And I realized it's only when you're filled with unconditional love in the present moment, it's one step to get whatever you want, right? Like there's not all these steps, there's all these barriers. You just change your resonance, and it's like the way opens up to the universe. And I realized, like as a coach, as someone that's in the personal development, that the only thing stopping us from having everything we want instantly is fear, right? And I realized
Absolutely.
all the spiritual teachers, Tony Robbins. So here's a good one. So I realized that Tony Robbins has people walk on fire. And what he does is he uses hypnosis to put people into love-based resonance. He takes them through a whole range of love-based emotions. Their brains dump in all the love chemicals. Now they can fucking walk on fire. And if you're not in that state, you get burned. Like the laws of physics change when you come from unconditional love in the present moment. And so I look at all the spiritual teachers, Jesus and Buddha, and I'm like, holy shit. Like I just realized so many things. And the next morning, I had a butterfly come out of my garden and land on my hand as I was walking by. And if butterflies are like a representation of spiritual transformation, because, you know, the caterpillar into the cocoon comes out as a butterfly. And it was the most life-changing thing I've ever experienced. So the principles aren't about, it's not about mushrooms. It's about love and fear and choosing to be unconditional with your love in the moment.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I think that it's so important in today's day and age for guys like us. You know, we're, you know, whatever I don't know, the cliche is around us. You know, guys don't talk about love. See, it's even hard for me to bring it up, but
right.
The moral of the story is love is the answer. And that's like to hear somebody that's like likes to work out, and you know, people look at me, they're like, oh, he's a meathead. It's like, no, man, you don't even know me. So
yeah,
love is the answer. And there's only two emotions that everything is based out of: love and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, you know, obviously some stuff in between, but it's love or fear. And if someone's reacting with fear, like even if they're being ridiculous to you or rude to you, all they're asking for is love. That's it, man. So I love that you saw that in your travels, you know, to see that once you get to love, it's just one step away. So
yeah,
that's awesome, man.
And they say that God is love, right? And it wasn't until I got into that vibration, that resonance, because of the hormone response, that I like I understood, like I felt it. And so all these people who go to church but they don't practice love, like they're wasting their fucking time, Brad. So
well, you're gonna talk about that.
We don't have to get into
it. You know,
it.
there's a lot of positive. Yeah, there's positive things that go into that. But let me just say this: if your church causes you to have fear, guilt, shame, or judgment, it's not legit. That's my opinion. So I'll just leave it at that.
They teach you to fear God, right?
Yeah, the fear of God and shame, and that is not how it is.
Yeah. So I want to hear another one of your stories if you have one.
Oh man, I did not prepare another story.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
I have a couple of stories. I don't think I want to share them right now.
Okay, I have another one that we can kind of talk through together if you're game for that. That'd probably be good on time then.
Let's do it.
So my first time doing ayahuasca, you know, we went to the same place, and it's a beautiful ceremony. I mean, the shaman who does it, her voice is amazing, and you just find this amazing peace going into it. And so I drank the tea and I laid down in bed, and people around me started to purge, because the medicine goes in and it grabs the negative energies, because they're all just like hormone responses, pulls them out. A lot of people throw up, and I didn't, and my body started shaking. And eventually, before long, I was like launched into another scene, which was it was maybe a past life experience, I don't know, but I found myself riding through the high plains of like the Western Rockies on a horse. I've told you this story, right?
Yeah.
So I'm literally riding a horse with my arms wide open, and I tilt my head back and I look up and I see a red-tailed hawk, which is why I wore this shirt today. I see a red-tailed hawk, which is my business, and to me, it's always been a symbol of freedom. And a couple years earlier, when I quit my job, I bought a truck, I hit my unit goals. I was driving up to Wisconsin and I felt so free, and a red-tailed hawk flew overhead. So this was like the same experience. And I'm a Native American warrior. Like there's war drums going in my head, and I'm riding this horse across the plains, and I feel at one with this horse. Like, have you seen Avatar?
Yeah, that's a great movie.
You know when they like plug in their energy cords into their horse being?
So that movie was created. I don't know if you know that. Is it James Cameron?
Yeah.
That movie's about his ayahuasca trip.
So maybe it's
like that's how he came up with that movie. So ayahuasca is in that movie, and that's why, you know. And I considered, like, for people that want to relate ayahuasca to mushrooms real quick. I mean, ayahuasca is like the grandma, like the ultimate, and then the ultimate source of love, or what, you know, whatever it is. And I would say mushrooms are kind of like the little sister, you know, like they have a similar port, but the port's much smaller, you know. So it's like, it's almost like it still works, but it's ayahuasca. One thing about ayahuasca too, is that it's going to clear your negative energy. Mushrooms, they actually do that a little bit in the beginning too, but they don't do it the same way.
Yeah.
Ayahuasca will actually purge you. I'll tell that story after you're done. I don't want to take over the story, but yeah. So go ahead.
So the oneness with the horse, just like in Avatar, when they connect their like energy cords, I felt like total oneness with this horse that was carrying me over the plains, and everything in the world, like everything got lost in that moment. So these medicines, they bring you totally into the present moment. And so I understood Native, like, I'm going to be careful how I say this, but like, I feel like I understood Native American culture in the sense that I could look at the landscape, I could look at the animals, and I felt their spirits. And like the Native Americans always talk about that. Yep. When you don't have cell phones and you don't have like keeping up with the Joneses, and all you have is this time in nature and this time with your tribe and silence and the beauty, you just connect with everything, you know. And that's what these American Indians experienced their whole lives. They didn't know any different until your ancestors came and ruined it.
I believe they were further advanced than any other civilization, honestly. And I gotta say, I am part Native American, but very small part, 1/32. So I can attach to that energy, and it is absolutely beautiful, because everything that they do is just tapping into the energy of the earth and the energy of the animals and the energy of the plants and the trees. And once you understand that, the whole world will just kind of work with you. I mean, you'll set a goal, and the whole world, I mean, even the wind will blow the leaves of the trees in your direction. I mean, it's powerful. And the Native Americans, they understood that. Yes. And when they, you know, like for instance, when they harvested a buffalo, they used all of the animal, and they had a ton of respect for that animal. So I think there's a ton to be learned, and a ton was lost there. You know, it's unfortunate how that story ended, or it hasn't ended, but you can learn a lot from that culture. I'll leave it at that.
So I got all of that in like a download in 4 hours. I like almost lived a whole life in that. And I understood everything that you and I are trying to be in this life, like, you know, with our body language and the way we live and the way we serve and the way we grow. In that vision, I had all of that. Like, I just lived it. I was a warrior. I was a leader. I had certainty. I led with my energy. I led with my being, right? I didn't lead by achieving. I led with who I was. And I got this vision of being like a servant leader. And as a wrestling coach, I would walk around the wrestling room, and the high school kids would look up to me. And so I had a vision. I rode my horse into the village, and all like the young warriors, they like stopped and looked up to me. And it was so many parallels in my life and that life. And I came out of that experience, like I could go on for an hour about this experience, but I came out of that experience, like my body language was different. Everything I was judging myself about was gone, right? And everything I was stressing about was gone. And I realized, like, to just be me in the present moment and to be powerful was natural. That was my natural state, and I hadn't been living in it.
So what you were doing, right? And let's take that into power versus force, and how, I mean, the title of the Facebook Live is performance enhancing. So I'm sure that's a little bit controversial, right? Like,
yes,
it's not necessarily that that's the case, but the moral of the story is, when you use these medicines correctly, they're going to show you who you are inside, and that will untap your power, which will change your life on every level, whether that's making you a better salesperson, a better lover, a better friend, you know, better at what you put in your body. So the performance enhancement is almost like a side effect, right?
Yes.
That makes sense?
Well, when you're
So the power versus force.
Yeah, go ahead.
Power versus force. So you and I talk about this a lot, and I believe that these medicines can bring you into power. So everything external that we're trying to do in our lives is, you know, it's like having your arm out here and you're trying to like dictate something or force something or make something happen. And that is force, right? And it takes physical effort, it takes mental effort, it takes energy to do that. When you can learn to come inside and use your own personal powers, and those are the things you're talking about connecting with on the horse, we all have it. Some people just have a thicker veil around it so they can't even feel it. You know what I mean? And these medicines help peel the veil back so that you can actually tap into your own personal power and you can affect the outcome of your life from inside versus trying to manipulate on the outside. And I think that kind of, why don't you build on that a little bit? Because I think that's really the moral of what this does for me, at least.
Yeah. So one of the most powerful things, I always come out of that with losing caring what other people think. Like I stopped caring what other people think about me. I stopped trying to live for people's expectations and judgments. I just let all of that go. And for your business, for your life, for your relationship, that's so powerful because you can show up as your true, authentic self, right? Once you can shed other people's expectations, you're free. And you get to lose your ego, you know, your judgment of self, your judgment of others. You get to lose that and you learn to become more present. And in the present moment, you can act. In the present moment, you can connect. In the present moment, you can influence people. And when you experience that, like you get new brain neural connections. And you don't ever go back. And in some ways, you might not live in that state all the time, but you have a new understanding of how that works. And so you get to go live in your business, and it's as a totally different person, as a totally different leader.
Yeah, and you have more power because the things like the things you think about them with a clear mind. You think about them with a love intention instead of a manipulation energy, and you're able to things just line up for you. I mean, you can envision the right people coming to work with you, the right people reaching out with you for opportunities, the right, you know, person coming into your life or whatever you want. When it's coming from within, we kind of say it in different ways, which is interesting because we probably would reach two different types of students. But I like that, man. I mean, it's from within, it's where the power is, and whatever everybody's journey to get there is a little bit different, I think. You know, I mean, well, absolutely, it's different for everybody. How you do it. I mean, there's people that can do it through meditation. There's people who can do it. I think these medicines are a shortcut. I mean, I've heard people say ayahuasca is like, you know, 40 years of therapy in one night. And for me, it was. For a friend of mine that was with me, I literally saw her wake up from this as like a newborn. I mean, she had lost like 10 years in her face. When she got up, she got out of this black energy that was like the size of a coffin, and she walked away from it, and her life has never been the same since that night. Her trip though was very, very intense, and when she literally like died in the medicine, and it took a big part of her away. She had a lot of negative energies, and so when she had a profound change, but that was kind of hard to watch. I don't know if that's a good story to tell.
I mean,
people out, but
it's reality, right? It's part of it. Like I don't know if I got lucky or, you know, I don't want to say lucky, but my experience, I came out of it and I was energized. Like I was ready to go to war if I had to. Like I felt so powerful.
Right.
My body felt different. My energy was different.
Yeah, I think most people come out of it that way, but some people have to go in and do a lot more work than others. And I think you and I, we've been on a personal development path for quite a while. So we had cleared a lot of the things that have been bothering us over our lifetime prior to doing ayahuasca. But some people, instead of clearing out negative energies in their life, they store them and they encompass them and they keep them close inside them. And, you know, they don't know how to let that energy out. And ayahuasca will bring it out, and you'll be a greater person for that. But it can take you through some necessary trauma to do that.
Yeah. So one thing I think about is like a lot of times we get stuck in this like rut, this channel, where we view the world the same. We try to change and we can't. And what these medicines do is they almost like give you a bump up out of that rut. Does that make sense? Because like a lot of times it takes momentum and energy to get outside of that rut. And they give you that bump. Now I'm working on doing that through hypnosis, and I think I've been pretty successful at using my, the hypnosis principles to bring people out of that rut as well. But the medicines just do it in a different way. And I think we're all doing the same thing, which is just pushing people into more of a love vibration.
There's so many different vehicles to get there. But I think the best way, I'm trying to remember this quote, but the work that you do with yourself, within yourself, that is the only fight worth fighting. And it's not even, I mean, it's a beautiful path to take. And it really is the only path. Like, just peeling your onion, understanding who you are, becoming one with yourself and with everyone else. I know that sounds esoteric and crazy to some people on here, but I'm telling you, man, if you can go inside, it'll change your life. And like Nick says, there's 100 different ways to do it. You can do it through hypnosis, you can do it through therapy, but I can tell you that sitting down every night and watching TV is just going to click you out of doing the work. So a lot of people avoid the work. And if you're going to avoid the work, you're not going to get any gains.
Yeah. And TV is such fear-based programming, right? Because it's like addicting. It sucks you in, and they just show you the worst of the world. And so everyone that I talk to that watches TV, the world is falling apart. Like, we're about to go to World War III. Everyone that doesn't watch TV, they think like we're on such a path of like awesome growth. So many cool things are happening. And you change the world based on how you resonate. You change, and that's why I've been on TV for 10 years. Like, I want to be happy. I don't want to think about what could go wrong.
Not only that, is they're programming you, whether you realize it or not, through the commercials, through the programming. It's all complete programming. I don't think we need to go into that, but be creative with what you put into your mind. I use my TV all the time, and it's either badass movies, because movies give you energy too. So you can get bad energy from movies or good energy from movies. So be careful with that as well. But YouTube can be an amazing resource to learn anything you want, whether you want to better your skills in your life or you want to do your spiritual work through YouTube. There's so many resources available, but you have to be creative. You have to think of like, okay, how do I want to use this time? What do I want to feed my body, my spiritual mind? Am I going to dump Roundup on it, or am I going to feed it with something beautiful, like, crystal clear water, and learn how to grow myself? So, it's important what you put into your body and into your mind.
I think that's why I started this channel, and I know that's why you did as well, so people could watch us who have devoted a lot of time to personal development and find some of those shortcuts and have the conversations that you're not going to see on TV, that you're really not going to see hardly anywhere, and then bring those to people. That was my goal, so that's why I want people to follow me and to give of myself and my experiences, and I know you're the same way.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of that. I can tell you that if it wasn't for these medicines, that I wouldn't be sitting here right now, because just like everybody else, I was afraid of what people think. And I still deal with that. I still deal with wondering what people think. And then I check myself. I'm like, who the fuck cares? What people think about me is none of my business. Right? I mean, that's really the bottom line. So, and this message, it needs to be out there. It needs to be, somebody's got to deliver it. Everybody else, there's a lot of people doing this work and they're not putting the message out there. So I thank you for bringing this up, and I thank myself for having the courage to talk about it, because absolutely. I feel better already that we talked about this. So,
if you want to make an omelet, you got to break a couple eggs, and I'm sure I'm going to get some feedback from people in my life who are a little closed-minded on things. They're the beer drinking, Fox News watching type probably. So I would encourage them to watch this and maybe keep an open mind. And if I can influence one person, it was worth it. But again, like I'm caring less and less what people think all the time, and that gives me freedom to be me and to do what I want and to put content like this out there and hopefully change some lives.
Yeah, I think it's almost like a burden is off when you talk about it, because I feel like we almost have like a duty to just share the experience. It's not going to resonate with everybody. People are in different paths in their life for different reasons, and that's totally cool. Some people want to heal. Some people want to stay grieving. Some people are grieving and they don't even know they're grieving, right? So whatever, it's totally your path. It's totally up to you. But the tools are out there if you want them. And if you're unhappy with your current state, there's ways to step out of that and step through that. So I think that's why I'm here. That's what the message I want to share.
Yeah. All right, Brad, we're at 40 minutes. Let's start to wrap this up. I just want to say that I'm super grateful to have you in my life as a friend. I'm super grateful for all of the experiences with the plant medicine and the people that made that possible. You guys know who you are. Super grateful for all of those experiences and the consciousness of the plant that comes in and shows me how to live better as a man. Brad, I would love to hear any last comments from you and also where people can find you.
Sure. So very grateful for you as a friend as well. I'm grateful for the mastermind we're in and the mutual friends we have that have helped us take this path. I mean, it's an awesome path and it's a fun journey, and it makes life more fun, right? I mean, it's awesome to have cool people to do it with. So thanks again for having me, and thanks for letting me get this message off my chest per se, because I feel better having done this. So, and for people who want to look me up, it's bradpickett.com. Or rermarketpro.com is some of my real estate stuff. So awesome. Thank you, man.
Cool. I'm excited to hear feedback, positive and negative, after this, and connect with you soon.